Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hello, inspiring people. Because I don't know if you knew, but you are inspiring. And guess what? You're listening to Inspiring Possible. So that means you might want a little bit more inspiration. So we are so glad to have you listening. You know, each time I get to talk to somebody new, I was just talking about the guests that we have today. I get a unique opportunity to learn something right along with you. And so the intention of each of these episodes is for you to maybe walk away with an idea or something new that you want to try, or maybe it's just a shift in perspective that you can bring into your life. And so this guest today, I think, has a really unique story, probably a lot of unique stories, honestly. But one of the ones that caught my attention was that, you know, during those COVID years that we all kind of try to forget. I mean, it was a real blur, that COVID time. He had moved his family to Barcelona and they packed their lives into 11 suitcases. And then they couldn't find their way home. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but that's not the only thing that this guest has, created and made possible in his life. He's also an entrepreneur, author, and speaker on a mission to help people break through fear and live with no regrets. He's a CEO of Lawline, which provides online continuing education for those legal friends of mine that may be listening. Hey, check that out. And he's also done a lot of other cool things that I'll let him tell you about, from like TEDx talking and authoring more than one book. And then also, parenting, which, David, I'm sure that is an adventure of its own. But I'm really excited to welcome David Schurman to the show.
Thanks, Christy.
So,
Yeah, you said it perfectly, and it was a great intro. And I'm excited to hear what I have to say.
Me too. Okay, first I am fascinated because, I've actually been following a few people that have done this expat thing where they'll move across the country. And how many kids do you have, David? Can I
Three
ask that?
kids. Three kids.
3 kids. Okay. So family of 5, right? Moving to a different country. Just maybe walk me back on how that happened, because I know you actually wrote a book about that, and we'll talk about that
Yeah.
in a minute, but I'm just curious how this all came to be.
So it was actually, you mentioned COVID. We moved 7 months before COVID. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So this was like y'all had already moved.
we had no idea COVID was coming, obviously. I wish I was that smart. And so we moved in August of 2019. But the question is, why did we pack 11 suitcases and go to Barcelona? I would have to rewind the clock to 2015.
Well, let's
And
get in our time machine and we'll go there.
okay, so we're back in 2015, and imagine it's 11 o'clock at night, and I have 3 kids, 6 years old and under, who do not want to go to bed. And then in the morning time, I can't get them to eat their breakfast and get ready. And during the daytime, it's just exhausting and come from work. And it was just one of those things where it was great having a young family, but as anyone who's been in that situation knows, it's challenging. Somebody had recommended a book called 3 Big Questions for the Frantic Family. And in that book, it took everything that I do for a business, like core value, mission, priority, and put all those things and applied it to your family. And one of the things it said is, in order to help you with your day-to-day, that your struggles, like putting your kids to bed, you should really focus on something to look forward to. What is your 10-year vision of where you want to see your family, and what is unique about you? And at that time, we have twins. Our twins are 6 years old, and we sat down with them at the table and we talked about what was unique about us. And everybody would take turns. They would say, eat healthy, having fun, self-confidence. And at the very end, I said, travel. It's something that was unique about who we were and what I wanted to do. And it said, okay, now turn that into a 10-year vision. And we said, we want to do this, this, and this. And the last line said, experience life through travel. Didn't mean anything, right? It was just like a pipe dream sort of situation. But everything that I've learned in life is when you like The Secret and Think and Grow Rich. When you have a vision, you got to tell as many people about it. You got to put it out in the world for it to come back to you. So I started telling everyone we want to experience life through travel. I told one person, he's like, well, if you're serious about that, you need to meet this guy, David Rich, who just came back from living in Barcelona for a year with his family. I was like, all right. So this is still in 2015. We had a phone call and he starts telling me all about it. And I was like, thank you so much. But like, I don't want to waste your time. Like, this is not a reality for me. I just like hearing this experience you
What's
had.
possible? I just like
Yeah.
hearing what maybe
Yeah,
somebody else
whatever.
did.
Probably over 4 years, we spoke a dozen times. We became really good friends. And every year it was like, oh, maybe this, maybe that. And then it became a point. I wrote a book in 2018 called The Fast Forward Mindset. And the book, as you sort of said in the tagline, is how to be more fearless and focused to accelerate your happiness and success. And in 2019, my twins were switching schools. So they were going from elementary school to middle school. And I was going through what you might want to call a midlife rut. So there was just a lot of little things happening. And my wife just says, why don't we like be a little bit more fearless and just do one small step? Why don't we apply to the school in Barcelona where that guy I became friends with, David, went with his family? So that was maybe in February of 2019, became the first real step that led to 7 months later packing 11 suitcases, getting on a plane, and moving to Barcelona. So that gives
Incredible.
you context. And
Well, and I just love how you just told me pretty much it was your wife who kind of said, "Well, hey, didn't you just write this book about being fearless? Why don't we why don't we try to do this?"
and by the way, it's a reminder, like, we ended up in Barcelona because we were being intentional about
Mhm.
where we wanted to see our life in 10 years. I had like, if you told me in that moment when I wrote that, that would mean we'd be living in Barcelona for 2 years, I'd be like, you're crazy. But fast forward to 2025, the most amazing thing, we were experiencing life through travel. Not only since we were living in Barcelona, since we've been back, we made a commitment to do really big adventurous trips every year with our kids. So it's just so amazing to me how, like, when you write things down and put it out in the world, it's much more likely to happen. And that's one of the reasons why I felt compelled to write the book, because you don't have to want to move to Barcelona. You don't have to want to travel at all. You might just want to like take a leap and change directions in your life, change your career, start a podcast, eat healthy, work out, do other things. And I wanted to remind people, at least in this part, like, it starts with the step of being intentional. And there's many other examples of once we got to Barcelona of things that happened that made us be even more intentional about our experience there.
Yeah, I'm curious. What was some of those things that kind of made you be more intentional?
Yeah. So we arrived, it was beautiful. We loved it. But I also had a little bit of imposter syndrome. Just, you meet these amazing people from all over the world who have been traveling, and this is their fourth country they've lived in. And it was the first time we've done something like that. And so I was sort of feeling a little bit out of my element. And I went to a barbecue for new parents at the school. And the dean gave his speech to the new parents, and it was almost like he was speaking directly to me. And he goes, moving to Barcelona and being in this situation, you sort of feel like that new kid in the cafeteria in school who like doesn't know where to sit, doesn't know people. He's like, but this year you're going to be invited to new WhatsApp groups. You're going to be invited to book clubs in Spanish. You're going to be invited to hikes that you think are too intense, to cities that you don't even know the name. You might be tired. You might just want to stay home and order takeout, but you have one job. Your one job is to say yes, because that's how you experience the mess and the magic of why you came here in the first place, to experience as much as you can in this city. And as soon as he said that, he just reframed my feeling of imposter syndrome to like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to do everything I can to meet as many people, to do as many things. And like the next day, literally, there was like an opportunity to do a museum tour with new parents. Normally, I would have like been like, nah, that's not for me. But I said yes. And we ended up meeting some of our best friends on that tour. And so like, think about how many times you've like said no to doing something, and you could potentially, like right now, we can potentially be best friends for life, like from this, or
Yeah.
at least colleagues, or at least know who each other are. You just
Mhm.
never know. And so that I started being intentional by saying yes to a lot more things. And the second thing was I decided to journal publicly about our experience. And so every day I would share, mainly it was for our family and friends, made it easy for me to be like, here's what we did today. And
Yeah.
I would put a picture. But very soon thereafter, people I didn't even know started reading it. And one of them actually reached out to me. He lived in Barcelona. He was American, but he came there to compete in the Olympics in 1992, and he won a gold medal for kayaking. And he was a coach, and he asked me if we can go out to lunch. I said, sure, let's go out to lunch. And he's like, I want to tell you, I've been reading your blog, and it's really unbelievable. He's like, can I tell you a story? I'm like, sure. He goes, when most people are younger, like in their 20s, they feel like they're on a kayak on a really wide river. They can go forward, they can go backwards, they can change any direction, and they can move easily. But as they get older, and especially to middle age with young kids, they feel like they're a cargo ship on a narrow river, stuck on that course, and they can't turn directions. He says, but not you guys. You guys turned your ship. You took this leap and you moved to Barcelona. And he said, you need to keep writing to share with other people to inspire them that they can turn their ship. It's never too late. And it was that conversation that really inspired me to want to turn this into a book. And I thought I was going to turn it into a book like that year. It took me
Of
5
course. Yeah.
years, but that was another example of like, okay, writing about our journey actually became part of our journey. And, knowing that I was sharing what we were doing publicly is like, if I stayed home all day and was on my computer, like, that's not really a fun thing to share. So it
Yeah.
ended up being a lot more intentional about what we did.
That's cool. I've never thought about that in that way. Almost sharing kind of in the way that you're kind of explaining it. It's like you almost shared and it actually made you be more intentional, which I guess that has happened to me before whenever I share things and I'm like, oh, I have more accountability to make sure that I'm doing
Yeah.
these things that I say I'm going to do. But I had never thought about it in the frame of like, and it's going to make sure that I'm embracing like you said, the mess and the magic and trying to have as much fun as possible
Well, it's funny, like
while over here.
if your life was a reality TV show, and there was a camera following you around, how would you live differently? You
Yeah,
know?
well, that's a good question.
And I think about that all the time because when I'm working at home and I'm like lying on my couch with my computer on my lap while I'm just 5 hours of typing, I'm like, that would be a pretty boring reality show. And so on the flip side, like, uh, life is not a reality show. And so,
Mhm.
but I know the more I do, like I told you before we started, I just came from like an 8-hour meeting with my leadership team. And it went well, but it wasn't like a home run. And because it's hard to grow a business, it's hard to like talk about how AI is going to be
Uh,
integrated into our workforce and how we're going to use it to accelerate success and all those things. And, I left that being like, man, I've been doing this 18 years, but I'm like, I kind of suck sometimes. But even though I suck,
yeah.
I don't care. Like, I'd rather show up and suck. And I don't even think I suck. But it's like, it's not, there's no magic way to grow
Yeah.
maybe there's a few people like they hit a couple buttons there, but any success story you have, it's not linear. It's
I
really
haven't found it.
challenging.
And in fact, it reminded me of like this morning I went to this gym that I go to and they do the group workouts and
Yeah.
Thursday is always cardio day, David, and it is like literally probably listeners know this is my least favorite. Like anything cardio, least favorite.
Yeah.
And, I had to do this running, like it was like run, then you had to pull a sled, all kind of stuff. Okay. But a lot of cardio stuff. And there were so many times in my head, I'm like, this is terrible. Why am I doing this? But then I'd have to reframe it and change my perspective of like, just take the next step, just take the next step. Just keep breathing, focus on your breathing, focus on that thing ahead. And I think something what you said earlier is that like I think we can overcomplicate things, or maybe not let me say we. Let me say me, okay? Like overcomplicate some of these dreams or things that we might want to be more intentional about. But what I've found is in what I'm hearing you say, it's just like you just have to take a step. So your step, even for this whole journey that has now led to this experience that your family had, where you were able to go on adventures, then it led to other adventures, then it led to writing a book, and then also framing, even probably bringing in some perspective of how you even do business at times. Like, but it all started with just an idea of like, this is who we want to become as a family. We
It,
have no idea how we're going to get there, but we just want to become travelers.
it didn't even start with that. It started with me wanting to get my kids to bed, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
But
that's
like,
true, huh?
so, but they think about it, like that I was trying to solve a pain point, and the answer to solve that pain point was you need to be inspired by something. You need
Hmm.
to see where the path is that you're trying to take it. And I think it's a good lesson. Like you focus on what is exciting and where you want to get to versus where you are. And of course it was we weren't alone. Every parent struggles with that. But it was helpful. There was a lot that wasn't the only thing in the book that it did. It also had you commit to like bedtime routines and other things like that, which was also really helpful. But I I pinched myself really that that actually turned into what it did. And so it's pretty
Hmm.
so I wonder
Yeah.
what I'm writing today will turn into something in 10 years from now that I haven't that is not what I anticipate it will turn into. But it so that's why it just because I was intentional 10 years ago, it's just as hard for me to
Yeah.
be intentional today. I haven't solved it. I'm
You
not
haven't
better at
solved
it.
the easy button for the intentionality is
But
what
for
you're
life.
telling
I haven't
listeners.
solved the
Yeah.
easy button for life. That's for sure.
That's good. I keep on thinking somebody's found the secret, David, but you know.
But you know what? Here's the truth. I, I don't I don't think that really like if there was an easy button for life, it would be fun for a day, maybe a week, maybe a month. But it's like the same story of like somebody sells their business, they go on a beach vacation for a month or whatever. They live on a beach. Most of them go back to business, or many of them get so depressed because they don't have a direction or a vision. And so it is the cliche, like it's the journey, not the destination. And the reason I love going on podcasts like this, because you said in the beginning, the podcast is for you. Me talking to you is for me because I'm taking these neurons in my head and I'm rewiring them as I say this because I'm reminding myself who I am and how I got here. And you got to put in the reps. I can't just think that by myself. I can't just write that. I need to tell somebody like you. And then the fact that we're actually recording it, whether one person watches it or 1,000 people watch it, me and you are on our game. If we were just doing a call, if that was a normal call that wasn't the potential of being a podcast, it would be a good conversation, but we wouldn't be that extra little element where we're like performing just a teeny bit, but it
Yeah.
makes us feel good inside.
No, they're probably I might would complain about something depending on the day, or we'd
Exactly.
be talking about this leadership meeting that you just had and swapping stories about, planning meetings and things like that and how they've gone. It would look differently, but you're right. I think, and to run back to my little brief run-in story, when I got to the end of that today, it was hard. The whole thing was hard. There was no easy button back to our story and your story. Like, but once I got to it, I was like, man, I feel so much better about myself. And I think that that intentional part that you're talking about, again, just like we're intentional right now for showing up really for each other, but then for other people that are listening. And I don't know about you, but for me, any vision that I have of something I want to accomplish and want to be intentional about, if it's tied into other people, it makes it so much more exciting to pursue.
Uh,
So I don't know if you felt that with your family whenever you were on this journey.
the first part, before even my family, is I've always had this vision of a mission of who I am. Then I recently read this book called Built to Serve, and it really helped me refine my mission and vision for what my purpose is.
Your
And
personal kind of
my personal
life
purpose.
mission and vision. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to share I used to say my personal purpose was to inspire and empower other people to live their life to the fullest. Okay? And then based on that book, it said your purpose should be a pain that you have suffered, that you have been able to go through, get through the other side in some form, and you can help people find the way. So it's related to your pain. And the pain that I have suffered and I continue to suffer and continue to move forward from is I'm a driven person. But many times as a driven person, I get stuck and for different reasons. I have, in many occasions, figured out and have a formula and have a track record on how to go from thinking about something to actually living it, like moving abroad, writing books, becoming presidents of organizations, building my business, running marathons. And I realized my new purpose, my specific purpose is my purpose is to help driven people who feel stuck move from thinking it to living it. Because that's who I relate to, driven people. Not when you start thinking of the 8 billion people on earth, it's just too overwhelming. And you start thinking about that negative person who is like, self-help sucks. Like this all is terrible. Like what? This is a waste of time. And that's the person you start thinking about when you're.
Or
when
I don't
you're
think like that. Why do you focus on
yeah,
this growth stuff? Why is that
totally.
important?
And then it's sort of like, you're right. I am just another cliche. I am one of a million. But then when I think of you, right? I'm like, Christy's driven. I have a couple years on her. And by the way, I feel like that's my requirement. Like I've been doing this. This has been who I am since I'm 10 years old, 20 years old, but now I'm 48. And so I just spoke to a group of about 150, 20 somethings. And it was so interesting because after I gave my talk, they started asking me the same questions I would ask when I was in my 20s. And to me, the answer is so freaking obvious right now.
Tell me what they were, because I can't even. I try to remember what was I asking at that phase of life, but maybe you
Yeah.
could tell me
I'll
some of
give
the
you
ones you
one,
got.
one example that comes to mind is like, I talked about the 10-year vision, right? As I just talked
Mhm.
to you. So one guy's like 25. He's like, you mentioned 10-year vision. I can't think past 3 months. Like, what would you say to me like about the 10-year vision, right? And so the first thing that comes to mind that I said to him, and I think, I don't know if it's a Jeff Bezos, it's somebody's quote, like who's smart and famous and a
Yeah,
billionaire, but
one of
like,
those people. I
he's
can
like,
never remember people's names and quotes.
I don't know if it's Steve Jobs or whatever, but it's like people tend to underestimate people tend to
Is it
overestimate what
Tony Robbins?
I don't know, but it's people
I
tend to
think he said it once, but
a
it
lot of
might not
people
be the
say this,
originator.
but
Yeah.
they overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade or even 3 years or something like that. And the reason that is such the question to me, I've been running Lawline for almost 18 years. So I have seen a decade go by and I see how it feels like a blink of an eye. But when I was 20 something and someone told me to think about 20 years, I'm like, there's no freaking way. I'm like, I can barely think about running this in a year. And so I thought it was a great question because yes, you need to think about what's right in front of you, but I have the experience to realize things happen in decades and things that I want to happen in 2 years sometimes take 8 years. And it is what it is like that. And so that's time and time again where you have to live through it a little bit to kind of understand what long-term planning means a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think about, I probably started maybe more of this life planning stuff in
Can I
20.
ask, do you share how old you are so I can get a sense of this age
Oh yeah,
gap?
I'm 40.
No freaking way.
I just crossed over to the 40s.
Oh,
Yay!
well, I had you at like 32. So,
Thank you
um,
so much, David. I will claim that
and by
100%.
the way, that's like a dangerous question to ask somebody. And the only reason I
I'm
asked,
an open book. I don't
I
care.
truly thought you were in your early 30s. So,
Yeah.
cool. Well, all right. So you
No,
got,
but I'll be honest
I
with
still got 8 years on you.
Yeah, you still got some time on me. You still got some time.
Yeah.
But I didn't start like I always was a goal setter, and like you in life was always more of the driven person. I would definitely say, like, if there was something I had my eye on, I was like, let me figure out how to make a way to make this happen. And of course, it happened through a lot of disappointments and didn't always get actualized the way that I thought it was going to be. But I would say probably in 2016, 2017, I really started getting on this path or journey of, wow, with a little intention, you can actually create a whole different life for yourself than maybe you were prescribed. So, I know that are you still live in Brooklyn?
I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm from small town Louisiana. That's the best way I can explain it. Okay. And so there is like this life trajectory that most people, and there's nothing that's wrong with it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But there was this idea of how life should go
Yeah.
by what I was surrounded by in my experience. And about 2017, I started getting down on this writing thing, like you're talking about. I call it magic paper. It's really regular paper, but you just start writing down something and then you read it a year later and you're like, holy crap. Or like 5 years later, like you said, and been like, did
Yeah.
I just like somehow write this down and it come to being?
Yep.
But I found throughout this experience, kind of like what we're talking about, that without a vision, you're just going to keep doing everything that you know to do. It doesn't get past now, like you said. So how do you encourage these 20-something-year-olds or 40-something-year-olds, like we're in, that maybe have been like, I can't think past a few years? Because I have this conversation with a very close, maybe family member of mine, where we talk about creating this vision of the future, and they
Did
just
you
are
say
like, "My mind doesn't
maybe
work like
family
that."
member of yours? You said a close maybe family
No,
member.
they are family members.
Okay. I'm
I
like,
don't blame 'em.
hopefully you know that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I do.
w so how like, so the question is, like,
Yeah, we
how
just
do you
have
d
these discussions
yeah,
because me and you are, it sounds like, in the similar pond of thought of like, always thinking about what could be improved, having hard
yeah,
conversations of what could be challenging, creating ideas for our life of like, I'd really love to, like, again, my family be more traveling. And how can we have these big, fun adventures every single year or
yeah,
whatever it is that you're setting an intention around? For the person that's listening, that is like, yes, I'm listening because I do think that these are all good ideas, but it's just so hard for me to get my mind wrapped around of
yeah.
what 3 years could look like or even a year from now. What would you say to those people?
I hate just, like, I hate saying, "Here's the formula to do it," right? Because like, nobody I
Yeah.
don't think anyone wants to hear that in that moment. Because I can relate to it even now, like, so I don't know, I would say I would say from 20 to 40, or let's say after I graduated law school, so 25 to 45. So I'd say up until, like, right around now, I had a clear path of where I'm going. And I would say my path, dare I say, 48 to 70, let's just say, my next 22 years, and I can't believe that's 22 years from now.
I know,
Um,
it's crazy. I just watched a reel the other day that was like, since you're 40, do you realize you have about 36 years left? And I was
Jeez,
like,
yeah,
I do know I could have 2 months left, but
right,
okay, thank you for
yeah.
the quick reminder that I got to get to work.
No, but totally, and, like, it's just to me, it's like, I'm actually dealing with that for myself right now. I'm like, "Okay, what is the next" my twins now are graduating high school, so I have 2 kids going to college next year, and I have 1 kid who's in 7th grade who's left, and our life's gonna look a little bit different, and I'm getting a little bit stuck, like, that's the same thing, like, 20 years sounds too far away, and then I'm like,
Mhm.
"Okay, well, 50 is, like, a round number, okay, so what is" right? So, like, what's the closest, so I'd start with, what's the closest round number for you, or what you're where you wanna be or what you wanna do? And so, like, that's number 1, and this is, like, you're in the mental health field, so I don't know if you do this. An exercise that I've done in the past that sort of helps me, it's like, "Okay, I'm 50 years old. I wanna look backwards." Let's start with, where am I? Am I in Brooklyn? Am I in my house? Am I working from home? Am I still running law line? What's my health like? How do I feel every day? Who in my community am I connected to? Am I having an impact? Am I speaking in public? Am I still doing podcasts? Do I still run my podcast? Start, like, telling the story, because I think we being storytellers helps us. And by the way, everything I'm saying right now, I want you to check on me, and, like, I'm gonna follow this, because I think
Follow up with David,
yeah, no,
okay?
because I think before you get into the linear, like, "Here's my goal and here's what I wanna do," is like, how do you wanna feel? Is an important component to that. And then I actually the purpose of the fast forward mindset was to build a framework for me and others to be able to focus on the next 20 years of our lives and be more successful. So I do have a framework that I follow. And I will get into it. I just didn't want to get right into it because it gets too boring if I just say, Here's step one,
Yeah.
here's step three.
Well, and some people, it's like bridging the gap between that and then, like you said, just what's the next round number, of just considering.
That's one. And then two, it's like generally people think the challenges in the world are on the outside, but there's only two things you can control in this world. And look, you're in mental health, so but the only two things you control are how you think and how you feel. And that's stoicism, right? All written all over it. And the reason I share that is because at the end of the day, for me, my challenge was never about taking action. I can do a million things. And I think it's definitely tied to having ADHD and chasing dopamine. And it's something that I only really got diagnosed in the past year, but I always knew I had it. And so I think when I said I focus on helping driven people, my goal is to help people who are driven like me, who accomplish a lot of things and do a lot, but then get stuck and they hit a wall and they get fearful. And so I have created a formula and a structure to help you not only get through that wall, but to find focus to do things like move to Barcelona and actually make that happen after 4 years of talking. So, and I'll happily get into it in a second. I do appreciate all the faces on your
Okay,
cup
so
there.
for those of y'all who are listening, what he's talking about is I'm drinking a little sip of water. So my leadership team, obviously, we're a bunch of women.
That's your
But
leadership team on there?
yeah, they got this for me for Bosses Day, so it has all their faces on it so that I could carry them wherever I
Th-
go.
Can I ask you, how big is your team?
It's 19.
And is everybody sort of like a contractor, or they're like is actually like employees?
They're all
Uh,
employees, yeah.
employees. So you have 19 people
Mhm.
who do mental health therapy for others.
About 16 of them are, and then we have 3 support, and I'm including myself
And
in
is it
that.
all Louisiana state specific, or is
No,
it
just
all
Louisiana. Just
just
Louisiana, yeah.
Louisiana? Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Interesting. Well, congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a while, but you know what? Honestly, the vision of this is why I'm about this notebook life. What you're talking about when you're talking about writing things down and just setting an intention, and then you wake up and this happened. Like for me, this whole mental health business, I always used to say, and that I was like the least likely person to be like an entrepreneur in the way of like I just didn't think that that was possible for me. Because a little bit about my story is I became a single mom unexpectedly at like early 20s, and so I was thrust into that parenting life kind of solo. I mean, I had great supports around me, but um, really was not the trajectory that I had envisioned. So I had to really recreate what was possible for me. And in that process, I just always thought that I would be, tied to some type of job. And and there was nothing wrong with that. I thought that was a great vision, and I kept on being able to grow in that role in the mental health profession because I fell into helping people, and I was like, "Oh, okay, least likely to be a counselor, but here I am, and I really enjoy working with people one on one." And then eventually it led me when I started this mindset journey where we're talking about this, like what else is possible? What's holding me back? Where am I stuck? Kind of all these things that we're talking about. I started listening to a podcast, which this is why this podcast is like, I call it my Pay It Forward podcast, because
Yeah.
that podcast helped me shift my mindset about what was possible for me.
Which
And
podcast?
one day,
Do you remember which
yeah,
podcast?
The School of Greatness. Have you listened to it with Lewis
Oh,
Howes?
I've seen. What's his name?
Lewis Howes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was listening that, I mean, it's continued to grow since I listened to it back in the day, and I still listen to it occasionally. But listening to that helped me realize, okay, what were my stuck places or what were the fears that were holding me back? And it led me to the next choice that eventually led me to one day writing out in a notebook what I envisioned of this practice that would take me back to my hometown and community that I was like, said I may not move back there. If you are listening from Central Louisiana, I still love you, but I just wasn't in the cards for me. I'm like, I don't think I want to move back. And I just felt so strongly that there was a need for mental health services in our area. There was a big gap. But the intention was just like me. Maybe eventually I'll have a few people, and just to see how that has came to life and then the impact it's made has been pretty incredible. So I'm a big believer in this is probably a terrible analogy to say, but drink the Kool-Aid of this writing things down
Yeah.
and, really casting a vision because I think that it impacts far more than just ourselves. But I love how you said you have to figure out how to do the inner work,
Yeah.
and that's a constant challenge even as it's growing. And I'm sure for you too, like as you continue to grow in whatever you're doing, there'll always be another wall you'll hit that you're like, okay, now I need to look around at this, figure out what this wall is coming up for me. Where does this limitation stem from? Where's the root of it? How do I pull it up or at least challenge it enough or try to do something and move past it? So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm tracking all these things that you're saying over here.
I love it.
So I know you said how you want to feel when you're creating this vision, but tell me a little bit more about how you have, because I know we'll maybe get into the framework a little bit of how for driven people, maybe like myself, because I would definitely put myself in that bucket. When they are feeling stuck, kind of what is your framework that you kind of put them to kind of get them out of that stuck place to the action?
Yeah, so there's two components to that. The first is the moment and the emotional component of like when you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you're like in a funk. You're literally like, I just had the
Oh
worst.
yeah, I felt that 100%
I-
before. I think anybody who's leading anything or
Totally.
trying
You're
to
like,
do something,
I
yeah.
ran a terrible meeting, people, whatever. And somehow you're in that funk and you can't get out of it. And I put together a couple strategies from different self-help improvement things that I use and they almost always work at that moment. So I'll share a couple right now.
Okay, let's go,
Okay.
David.
There's a book called Fill Your Bucket. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I'm getting all kind of book recommendations to add to my wall of
Fantastic.
books.
So it started as a children's book, but then became a business book. And the premise of the book is uh, the job is to fill your bucket with energy. Like how do you do that? And I'm going to ask you, what do you think is the number one way to fill your bucket to get you out of that funk to give you more energy?
Well, for me, I guess it depends on what the day is and what I need. Like sometimes it's just for me connection with other people. That's not people that maybe I feel responsible for. I know that sounds crazy, but you know what I mean? Like people that just I'm just being able to
Yeah.
connect and just being myself and which I feel like I try to be myself on most days, but I would say connection or some time for reflection to be able to just be still, not really think, not really do,
Yeah.
and then travel. Be honest with you, if I
For
can get
sure. For
away,
sure. And,
like,
and I'm
yeah,
gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna hold on to the connection one because it's sort of where it goes. It says
okay,
number one way to fill your bucket is actually before I tell you, I'll give you an example. I think you're a great podcast host because I can tell you're listening. I could tell that you're not just going through a script and like you heard me say something before and instead of going to the next question, you pause and you're like, "Oh, actually tell me more about that." And that takes a lot of skill and it takes confidence. So, I think you're doing a great job.
thank you, David.
So, what I just did was I took a moment and I filled your bucket. But 2 seconds before I filled your bucket, I knew I was gonna fill your bucket, and I knew I was gonna make you feel better. And by filling your bucket, I'm actually filling my bucket. So it's actually a win-win. The number one way, like when you're like feeling like crap, is go and fill other people's buckets. And do it intentionally. Do it like if don't just blow smoke. Do it.
Yeah,
There's an exercise that I do when I'm filling people's buckets, especially at work. I'll say I have to do 5 people, and I'll put like 5 pennies in one bucket or whatever. I don't even have pennies anymore, but 5 things. And by the end of the day, I have to fill 5 people's buckets. And I'm doing it just so I can get through this down depression or whatever I'm feeling.
hmm
It's almost impossible by the 5th bucket you fill to not completely change your view. And so that is one really great way to get out of that depression. Number 2, there's a book called A Complaint-Free World. And have you heard that book?
No, but I love the premise. I love the premise of both of these so
Yeah.
far. Complaint
So
free world.
by the way, all these books and all these stories are in the Fast Forward Mindset, my first book.
Okay.
That's why I know them, right? Like when you suffer for like years to write a book, you end up memorizing
You
this stuff.
remember everything.
Yeah.
You're like, I know that
So
book.
right, there's magic paper, right? That book is magic paper for me. And so In the complaint-free world, there's this exercise that you have this bracelet on, and there's a challenge to go 30 days in a row without complaining.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
You can complain in your head, you just can't do it externally. And here's the challenge. Every time you complain, let's say you're on day 4, the challenge goes back to day 0. And so if anyone is actually fully able to get through it, and very few people could, I think it was an average of 9 months because that's how much it reset. And so I got to 7 days, the most I can get. And what I realized during those 7 days was how often I complained about the most, just to make small talk. The traffic, the weather, my boss. Like, it might be too often you complain at work about your wife, at home you complain about your boss or whatever it is. And so just in those 30 days where I got 7 days in a row, it was really unbelievable because when you complain, you feel worse about yourself and other people feel worse about you. And I'm going to give you an analogy to sort of put it all in perspective. In the book, they talk about this paint store that had a cannonball that was hanging from the ceiling. And it became this tradition whenever somebody walked in, they would put one coat of paint on the cannonball. I think it was like 15 years later or so. How much do you think, after everyone just doing one coat of paint, that cannonball weighed in the end of 15 years?
I don't even, I'm so bad at math when it comes to weight problems, but I'm sure a lot.
Just give a bad guess.
I have no idea. Putting paint on this cannonball over 15 years. I mean, oh my gosh, like 500 pounds?
Yeah. So most people are like 30
So
pounds,
bad.
20 pounds.
Okay.
It weighed 2 tons, which is like 4,000 pounds. It is being held,
Oh,
it
okay.
was being held up outside the store by a crane. And there's a picture of it in the book. This huge thing. And the analogy is every complaint on its own is not that big. But if you complain day after day, one layer at a time, you're carrying around a freaking cannonball at the end of the year. So back to that exercise, I go into that mode of like, all right, I'm not going to complain for the rest of the day. And then I journal. I don't even know sometimes why I'm depressed or what just went wrong. And I keep writing until like something comes out. And then I write 5 things that I'm grateful for. That's also helpful. So those are the specific things that I do. And then the 2 longer term things that I do, and one sounds obvious, but it's not, is I have a plan, and I always think I used to have a plan, but when you don't put a date to something, it's not a true plan. And what I realized, the best sort of way of going about this was training for a marathon. Have you ever run a marathon?
David, we just talked about my not fun time with running. I'm
So I
just
guess
kidding.
not.
No,
Guess
no,
not.
like that is a no.
Okay. Okay.
Like there's a few things that I think I was like, oh, maybe in life, but that
What
is
about a 5K?
probably.
Have you done a 5K?
Oh yes, I've done a
Okay.
5K. Yes, yes, yes. Marathon.
10K? 10K?
I don't know. I feel like I've
Yeah.
run a lot at the
Okay.
gym.
Okay. Well,
But not,
wh-
I don't think a 10K, no. I've
wh-
walked that far. I've done hiking adventures, a lot of miles, but
what do you think is the number one reason an average Joe, like me, for example, when I started training, the most I had ever ran was a 5K. What do you think allows someone like me within 4 months to be able to go from a 5K to 26 miles?
well, like you said, you probably went ahead and registered. I don't know if you said this, but you probably registered for this marathon that you wanted to do, and maybe somebody else was gonna do it or somebody challenged you to do it. That's what I would think.
Yeah.
Is that what it is, or
Well, so specifically to the why I did it is I read this book, actually it's right here, called The Success Principles by
Oh, yeah,
Jack
yeah, I got
Canfield.
that one.
And principle number 54 is keep your commitments. And at that
Mhm.
time, I was breaking commitments left and right, especially to my employees. So to your point, like it was somebody I was friends with who worked for me. I was like, what's the hardest thing I can think of doing? At that time, I was running a marathon. I'm
I
like,
feel like that should be something for
I'm
me
like,
too.
let's run the Philadelphia Marathon and not tell anyone about it. Let's just fucking do it. But the reason we were able to get through it, most people are like, oh, because you're fearless and you got it. And other people was like, well, you had a buddy who was helping you and you did that and you had mental toughness. And so I say, yeah, those are all the things. But when I hit mile 23, I hit what they call the wall. Have you heard that before?
Mhm, yes.
And I could barely my legs were like, it felt like I was running on like broken glass. What do you think got me from mile 23 to the finish line?
I don't know, people on the sidelines? I mean, what was it, David? Your person running with you?
I I knew that it was 26.2 miles. I knew only had 3 miles. If I thought it was a 50-mile race, if I didn't know what the end of the race was, there's no shot I could do it. And my point is, in life, we have to deal with these 3 things at the same time. We have to be mentally tough. One, I had a training plan that took me exactly, if you follow these things to these on these days, in 4 months, you'll be able to run a marathon. And I knew how far I was going to go. In life, we generally don't have a training plan. We don't know how far we're going to go. And we have to be mentally tough at the same time. And so I say that in recognizing the struggles that we face when you feel like you're struggling creating a plan. Those are some of the reasons why. And so at least I set a date and a time frame to get that going. And I have one more thing, but I'll pause there because I've been talking for like 8 minutes in a row.
No, I'd love to hear the one more
It's
thing.
okay. So you know who Jerry Seinfeld is?
Yes.
You're of my age, so you do. When he was a young comedian, he asked an older comedian, he's like, "What is one thing I can do to become better?" And he goes, "Well, Jerry, instead of like waiting to what most people do once a month and writing all your jokes one day for the whole day, I want you to write 3 jokes a day, but write it every single day. And then your job becomes never breaking the chain of doing something daily versus writing the jokes." And I love that because that you don't focus on making every single joke amazing. You just know I got to get my 3 jokes out today. And that's how he became successful. And I followed that philosophy with so many things in life. One example is like I write LinkedIn posts pretty much almost every weekday. And I do it because I don't want to break the chain. And many of the posts, I'm like, I don't think these are going to get it. No one's going to like these. No one's going to view these. But I'm like, freaking, I got to get it done because I can't break the chain. It forces me to put out posts that I'm a little embarrassed about that I don't think are going to do well. And sometimes they do much better than I think, and sometimes they don't. But I don't focus on likes or views. I focus on not breaking the chain. So that's always been helpful for me because what's the lesson there? Being consistent.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I love some of these things. I mean, you've even given me a few ideas, especially with the fill in the bucket and the complaint free stuff. Just to kind of be able to think about ways to kind of get yourself out of that place of a stuckness that we all find ourselves in. And I think for anybody, whether you would describe yourself as you're listening as a germ person or not, I feel like any of these suggestions are stuff that you can implement in your life tomorrow. It might take a minute to
what
get a
person or
habit,
not?
but driven. Sorry, that's
Driven.
my
That makes a lot more sense.
accent coming through. Driven
I was like,
person.
I don't like germs either, man. I don't know.
I'm like germ. And look, I'm telling you, my child jokes with me, okay, that she's like, Christy, like, because I can remember what other people said most of the time, not all the time, okay, but I really tried to be an intentional listener. But what I can't always remember is what I said.
So what's it like? What's it like having a 20-year-old when you're 40, like who's like essentially
Well,
your
she's not
contemporary?
20 yet. She's not 20. So
Okay.
she's about this age of your twins.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
she's 17, about to be 18.
17. So okay, so she is senior or junior?
She's a junior, but she hopes to be a senior any day now. Be done
It's almost
completely.
done. Yeah. But yeah, okay. So that's more than she's not an adult yet. So she's still in the kid mode. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
she still is. But you know what? We're doing a lot of this work, and this may even be something to think about if you're listening. Like we're actually doing a lot of this. Write down a goal of what you want to see yourself in a year, and it's really interesting of trying to teach her some of these ways of
Yeah.
just considering what it is that she wants things to look like, and then we sometimes look at the how. Like, how are we going to do that? Because that's still something I think when you're younger, you don't always have a grasp of how much things cost,
Yeah.
how this is going to happen, how, and so I don't know if you're doing this with your twins, but there's a lot of this sitting down of like, okay, let's paint the picture because, anything is possible and let's figure out something that's aligned for you. It doesn't mean you have to figure out the whole path. Let's just figure out what the next step is and
I don't
why
know.
that would be important to you.
You're in mental health, so I don't know. You tell me, but like for me, sometimes like when you're in a profession, the hardest thing is to get your kids to like follow what you do. So like I'm not a self-help guy, but that's sort of what my passion is. The last thing they want to hear from me is like, here's the lesson to do. With that said, I believe, because I see it and I hear them say it, they're watching you every single day. They
Mhm.
know we moved to Barcelona. They know I run my own business. They know I wrote 2 books. They know I love doing podcasts. They know so they make fun of me like no end. But as my daughter said, she's like, "We make fun of you because we love you, because we respect." Like, she's like, "If we weren't making fun of you, that'd be a problem." She's like, "We're not gonna come up to you and say, 'Thank you, daddy, for, like, showing me how to make gold.'"
No.
Well, if you the fact that your daughter wants to do that is impressive in the first place.
Listen, we didn't get here just this is overnight. It's still a, again, it's us, we're all on our growth journey.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I will say has motivated me throughout my time, and maybe this is for you too, but a big motivation of that's helped me take leaps and really do some things that most people would be like, Christy, I don't know how you did that. And I'm like, I don't know, by faith and it just happened.
Yeah.
And really from my belief system, from God's grace in a lot of ways. But, one of my goals was to be able to show, like you said, my daughter that things are possible for you too. And so for me to do that, I had to really get past some of my own fears and discomfort and things so that hopefully, that she will at least have seen that you can create possibilities for your life. You just have to create that vision and really take those intentional
Yeah.
actions. And like you said, consistency over time that really allows you to create things. And I mean, I look around all day. I walk out in my yard and I'm like, look at all these birds figuring out how to do these nests. I'm like, I really do believe that there's part of us that's supposed to create. I think we all have different strengths and talents, but hopefully if I can inspire her to take some of that action too, maybe imperfect action, then that's a win for me.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Well, David, if people want to find these books that you have written, the 11 Suitcases or the Fast Forward mindset, is it mindset or method?
Mindset.
Okay, good. See, I got it right the first time.
Yeah,
Let me go second. I'm guessing myself.
yeah,
Or if they just want to connect with you more, how
yeah.
can they do that?
But I guess 2 ways. So 11suitcases.com, you have actually both books on there, and you can links to Amazon to buy them, and also more about our story, have some pictures, some videos, and things like that. I also, like I said, post regularly on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me and put in my name, David Schnurman, on LinkedIn, and we can start a conversation.
Yeah. Well, if you could go back, I do have a question for one
Yeah.
final question for you. I like to ask my guest. If you were to go back to 2015, when you were just trying to get your kids to bed, and you could give yourself one word of wisdom or just an encouragement or piece of advice, what do you think that you would go back and tell 2015 you?
Someday you're gonna have a lot of gray hair, so appreciate that they're not gray yet. Um, I would look. I think, we have a dog now, and of course, I'm the one who I walk, especially on the weekends. I walk the dog early in the morning on the weekend, and there's 2 sets of people out at 7 a.m. on a Sunday: dog walkers and parents with small children. And I don't know if you feel this way yet, but like when you see your kids and you see the children and the way they look up at their parents and they're holding their hand, we're seeing how they revere them. It's just it's just a special, unbelievable moment and in time. And it goes, I know I sound so cliche, but it does go quickly.
It's so true. Yes.
And I'm, the fact that we decided to have a third kid, I feel grateful because I don't know if I would be ready to be empty nesters next year. So, while he's now turning 13, so I think that I mean, look, he's cute and handsome, but he's no longer the baby face kid he was. So yeah, I would just say, continue to appreciate this. And I don't know about you, but like, you look at your childhood and it felt like forever, right? And that's who it was. And I look at myself as a parent and my older kids, their childhood to 18 is like almost there. It's gone, right? Like you're going through that. And just like, I just feel like I didn't appreciate it. I thought it was going to go slower than it did. I didn't,
Yeah. So you say, hey, go and just savor a little bit of the moment a little bit more.
I don't know. Like that's too cliches. I don't know if that's what I would say. I would just hug your kids a little. Yeah, I don't know. Everything I'm saying sounds too cliche. So not that there's anything wrong with it.
I think cliche can be true. I mean,
No,
just
I
because it
know.
sounds cliche doesn't mean
I just
that.
want to be unique and different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and well, yeah. So I would tell them, it's both about parenthood and, yeah, I mean, it's been a lot. So much has changed in 10 years. So
Mhm.
just just to know that 10 years, a lot can change in a positive way. And it's
Yeah.
something that I would just tell myself now, a lot's going to change in the next 10 years. So it's just to remind myself, okay, buckle up. Let's make this happen. So that's the best
Okay,
I got
let's
for you.
enjoy the
At
journey. Let's
5 o'clock.
go. Well, listen, David, as we wrap up, I am going to do something that you taught me to do today that I'm going to do, and that is to acknowledge you for, I think a lot of people have ideas, but that's what they are. They're ideas. And what you did was you had some ideas of how you wanted to live intentionally. And I always think it's incredible that people don't stop there. They actually figure out, how can I also share this with other people to hopefully help them, like you said, inspire or empower them along the journey. And so those 5 hours that you might have been sitting on that couch typing up these books, throughout the time. And
5
then
hours? 5
well, you
years.
talk
5
5 years.
years.
Well, that's what it was, 5 years on the couch. But you did tell me there was, like, one day where you're, like, 5 hours on the couch if it was a reality show,
Oh,
so I think about
that's
yeah.
just my everyday working.
So with whatever that time is, 5
Yeah.
years, let's not undersell it here, to really create these books that you put out into the world, but then also not stop there and say, "Okay, let's give them my time to be on these podcasts, so hopefully I can inspire one person today." I know I'm walking away with some insights and things to maybe apply in my own journey, so I just wanna acknowledge you, and appreciate you for coming on today and also sharing those things, so
Thank you, and I really truthfully do mean you do a great job. I wasn't just
yeah.
trying to fill your bucket. I've done dozens of podcasts over the past couple months, and, you get to learn who are great hosts and who aren't as the good hosts, and you're one of the greats, so keep
Yay,
pushing
thank
forward.
you, I'll take that, I'll take
Yeah.
that. Thank you so much. Well, if y'all are listening, as you are, y'all know I give y'all a takeaway that I'm taking away, which there's numerous of them because I can take my little handy dandy notes. But there was something that he said early on in the conversation that I just absolutely love, and it stuck with me, and that I hope it sticks with you too as you go throughout your day. And that is, my challenge to you this week is to say yes to experiences that may have mess and magic, because you just never know what may happen next. See y'all next time.
That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.